Good morning. This is Dylan Jovine with Behind the Markets. Happy Friday. Today is Friday, February 6th, TGIF. Anyway, today I'd like to talk about how the software sector is really getting its lunch eaten by AI. And this has really led to the sell-off that we've seen this week in the Nasdaq, really. AI is starting to really chew up and eat a lot of these software companies. And it reminds me very much of how back when we were talking about Ozempic and the weight loss drugs in 2022, really before that hit the consciousness, you saw a lot of biotechs that made a lot of MASH-related drugs getting hammered because we were seeing in early data that these weight loss drugs, these GLP-1 drugs, were just very effective in not just treating weight loss, but a bunch of other associated conditions. We're seeing the same thing start to happen with AI stocks attacking the software sector. For example, this week, Anthropic, which makes this AI app called Claude co-work, really released a tool that actually helps automate a number of legal drafting and research tasks. Now, think about that. There are entire business models, companies, stocks that basically, that's one of the big things they do. That's one of the big things that they do to generate money. And here we are, Claude is releasing that for free. So, of course, Thomson Reuters, LegalZoom collapsed, their stocks collapsed. The London Stock Exchange, which has moved heavy into data, has also started to get hammered. And all of these companies basically provide some form of legal tools or research databases. And they all fell, more than 12% this week. So the question really is, and it's not just legal companies that are getting hammered. Shares of financial data companies are getting hammered too. You think of like S&P Global, MSCI, the Intercontinental Exchange, London Stock Exchange, one of my old favorites, FactSet Research, something that I've owned on and off for many, many years. All of these stocks are getting hammered because now with AI, you can have an agent, you can program an agent that basically fetches all the data that these companies were fetching and doesn't charge you anything to do it. Or maybe your subscription fee to Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini. It's really astonishing because the data business has long been a Wall Street cash cow. These companies' financial and legal data has been super profitable, obviously super profitable, unbelievable. So the AI is really starting to hammer and threaten these companies. There is no doubt about it. And, you think of companies like Salesforce and Adobe, and, these are companies that, when I look at all of these companies, I don't understand their competitive response to an AI agent that does what they do for free. I don't understand it. And any company that uses or pulls data from the SEC, and we are one of these companies. We pull in data, let's say from S&P Global or from FactSet Research. We pull in that data, we use that data. Now at Behind the Markets, we're starting to program agents who are able to just tap into the SEC database in minutes and present the data any way we want. So I don't know how S&P Global, for example, or FactSet Research, I don't know what their competitive response to that is. It's going to be very interesting to see what their competitive response. So I would be avoiding every single stock that I mentioned today in this video, because again, one of the great things I learned from Warren Buffett is durable competitive advantage. I think a lot of people miss that when they think of what the most important part, they look at Buffett as a value investor. He's a value investor. Of course, that's true. But the most important thing, and I didn't understand this until I got older, was not just competitive advantage, it was durable competitive advantage. And right now, these companies, they had durable competitive advantages. Then they went down to competitive advantages with the rise of the internet. Now their competitive advantages are just going away. So you have a massive amount of dislocation. And it has been this realization that wealth is being transferred from all these software stocks basically to a handful of AI players that started to send this market on a tailspin. That is the new big story for this week and the last couple of weeks. So we have been avoiding software stocks because Basically, I see how that is just, frankly, in our own business, how it's starting to revolutionize our own business. And those of you watching this who are entrepreneurs, and I know many of our members are small business owners, et cetera, I'll tell you something. What I said to my team was this: look, we don't adopt this, we don't start moving on AI, then we're going to get outcompeted. And the people that do, they're going to save more money, they're going to be more profitable, they're going to be able to take those extra profits and continue and invest those into expansion. And it might not blow up our company in a year or two, but over time, we will start growing slower than our competitors who are adopting these things. So what I did is, here as a business owner, I basically mandated everybody to once a week, we're having meetings on how you're using AI to make what you do faster, better, or less expensive, or all three ideally. Ching, ding, 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 ding. And we're pushing that. And seriously, I imagine that's happening all around corporate America today. So, companies are pushing this to avoid becoming irrelevant over the next 3 to 5 years. But if you don't see a competitive response, it's going to be very interesting of the 8 or so companies that I mentioned today. And I'm just going to mention them again for those of you who may own some of these, either directly or through a retirement account, through an exchange fund or a mutual fund. It's Thomson Reuters, LegalZoom, London Stock Exchange, which also does a lot of data, Adobe, Salesforce, S&P Global, MSCI, Intercontinental Exchange, and FactSet Research. Those are companies right now that I would be wary of in this age of AI until we see that those companies have an appropriate competitive response to the threat posed by AI. Anyway, that's all I have today. Have a wonderful weekend. I will see you Monday.